Hey everybody, it's Tyler Esselman.
And it's Michael Osinski.
And you are listening to This One Goes to 11.
This One Goes to 11 is our podcast where we invite someone to share an album with us that they believe is perfect.
So perfect, in fact, Michael, that 10 out of 10 just isn't good enough.
It ain't.
We really have nailed the cadence for that. It's pretty much the same every single time now.
I've thought about sometimes, I feel like, because you know, they say that, you should never always take the same way home because your brain forms like a path in your brain or whatever. Yeah. And so you should try and often do things differently to keep your brain active. I often think that we should do something weird for the intro. Same words, but something a little different. I don't know.
In reverse.
I'm just looking out for my brain health. I mean, if Mayim Bialik has taught me one thing from her commercials, it's that I need to be considering the health of my neural pathways. So.
That and your gut flora. That's a...
Girl, don't get me started on my gut flora, all right?
Okay, well, we know you come to This One Goes to 11 for good fiber and gut flora talk. We know that's why you keep coming back, but we're grateful if that's the reason. We're grateful for any reason that you keep joining us on this adventure that we're on. It's season 10 still. As you might remember, we are giving a little gift to ourselves where we are inviting our friends back to the pod this season. So it's all repeat guests. So for some of them, it's their second time on the pod. Some of them, it's their third time. But as a little gift to them, we decided to give them the challenge of requiring them to choose an album to place before the pantheon that was released before they were born. Right, Michael?
Mm-hmm. That's our prompt. I love a good theme.
That's it.
I love a good theme. So
That's all you get. That's all you get. And everybody who clicked on the episode should know. But just in case they forgot, Michael, can you tell us what friend of ours have we invited back to the pod today?
We have welcomed back a dear friend of mine from college. We have welcomed back Kristen Bonstein. Hey, Kristen.
Hi.
Hi, Kristen.
So happy to be back. Season 10. That's feels like extra special. And I love the prompt. I'm so excited.
Was this something that was a difficult choice for you? Without saying what it is just yet, was it a difficult choice for you, or was this was this the first album that came to mind?
It was the first album that came to mind. It was on my original list.
I believe it was, yeah.
And so it was always kind of there in the background. And yeah, it's only a few years before I was born. So and I have some nice stories to go along with it. So yeah, it was pretty much just this one.
The person who wrote the album that we were talking about today is kind of one of those old souls, somebody who probably when they were 19, 20, 21 probably had the soul of like a 900-year-old. That's one of my my hot takes, if you will, because that's what the podcast industry is about, Kristen, is hot takes. So without any further ado, why don't you do us and our listeners a favor and tell them, what album hath thou brought before This One Goes to 11 tribunal today?
That would be 1975's punk magnum opus, Horses by Patti Smith. The debut album.
Mm-hmm.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
That it's a debut album. Crazy.
And that she was, back in those days, and even now, people are supposed to make it when they're little babies, right? And she was 30 or 29, I guess, when this came out. And that is quite shocking for that time. And she was doing all kinds of interesting things in art before that. But both she and Blondie, Debbie Harry were 30 when they made it big. And especially for a woman, especially back then when typically you'd have 4 kids by 30, it's, I think that's really remarkable. And I remember, when I got into the album as a teenager being like, oh, 30, God, that's so old. What was she doing?
Yeah, 30-year-olds looked older back then, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously everyone was smoking, drinking more, not wearing sunscreen, but yeah, it's...
Pollution. I was thinking pollution was probably worse back then. Yeah.
You'll see Timothy Chalamet next to, I don't know, some old school actor when he was 30, and it's really hilarious.
And Patti Smith does have that effect about her. But what were you going to say, Michael?
Is Timothy Chalamet 30 now?
Yes.
Close to it, yeah.
Barf, all over the world.
Yeah, I know. Anyway. Well, yeah, Patti Smith, freaking incredible. And you're right, this was on your list before, I believe. And so I kind of figured that Patti was coming at some point, didn't you, Michael?
I think so. Yeah. And
Yeah.
we briefly started to touch on it a little bit in Kristen's first episode. And I'm 100% sure that she and I are going to end up talking about our very specific connection to Patti Smith as part of this episode. But before we dive into that, we have a very special segment. I believe I've been told it's everyone's favorite segment. Tyler, what segment is that?
That's called the Beginner's Guide to Patti Smith's Horses in 60 Seconds. And I'm doing it today. Yeah, so you're going to start to build your case for why this album is perfect, Kristen, you might remember. And before you do that, I have an opportunity to take on the challenge of summarizing Patti and the context of this album into 60 seconds for those who may not know Patti like we do. And you get to assess how I do in any kind of Montessori-ass way you want to, you know?
All right,
did you say Montessori ass?
Yeah,
I did go to Montessori school for a couple of years.
There you go.
Yeah.
I didn't, but I wish I did. It would have been tight.
Appreciate the reference.
Yeah. Feel pretty good about this one. I want to say that I was going more for kind of blood and guts than I was refinement in true Patti Smith fashion. So that's not me trying to lower your expectations, but take that as you will. How about that?
I love blood and guts. Go for it.
Okay.
All right, Tyler, you ready?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, go.
Patti Smith hatched from an egg, the daughter of the primordial crow, blessed with glorious purpose to share fire with mankind. She came of age in South Jersey, the part she claims was tougher than Springsteen's, and did some school, worked in a factory job for a minute, but it was always going to be New York City for Patti, right? Smith hopped on the train to New York in 1967 and dived headlong into the artistic fondue bubbling away in Manhattan, infamously hanging her hat at the Chelsea Hotel and rubbing elbows with the scions of the rock and art scene from the previous era and the next. Equally adept at raw expressive power across media, she quickly became known for her knack at fusing poetry with rock and roll in a way that was explosive and enrapturing. A residency with her band at CBGB led to old Clive Davis offering her a 7-album deal at Arista Records, the first record of which is called Horses. In her own words, Horses is 3-chord rock merged with the power of the word, an essential seminal punk record that brims with power, intelligence, and joie de vivre. It has only grown richer with age. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent.
I didn't get it all in there, but you know what? I got a little
I don't
verbose.
think I knew the Clive Davis bit. I didn't know it was 7 records. That's pretty freaking incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that there was...
Clive Davis just looks like a music executive. You ever seen a picture of that guy?
Yeah, no, he shows up like everywhere. It's crazy.
Totally.
No, that was excellent. I'm like, I don't know, 10 out of 10 black ties.
Yes. Yes.
I was like, I love menswear on women, and so that's like a whole part of her allure and mystique too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I was like, I need to wear like a vest and a button down or something evocative of Patti Smith for this recording, but I didn't have quite the right outfit. But
That's fair. She does have a distinctive look. Well, thank you. I'll wear them. I'll wear them with pride.
Yeah.
I guess the last time you were on, we were still in our points era, weren't we? We've moved on from points at this point in our progression, but
nice.
I appreciate the points nonetheless.
I will say you did, on your first episode, when you brought forth The Cure's Disintegration, you did amass 1,366,600 points.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quite a few points.
I think that's roughly the same to 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Math is a flat circle. So
yeah.
The Crow reference, I'm not sure if y'all would have picked that up from the research you might have done beforehand, but I was referencing the casting notes from her show with Sam Shepard, Cowboy Mouth, which called for casting a man that looked like a coyote and a woman that looked like a crow. And I think Patti Smith really does look. And so I got my crow mug out, bringing fire like Prometheus to the mortals.
That is a great deep cut. I read Cowboy Mouth a million years ago, and I know that lore, but I didn't. That casting note is incredibly specific. So
right?
Appreciate the Easter egg.
Yeah.
And in your summary.
Okay, we're before we get into Patti Smith a little bit. So like the last time that we had you here, we had you talk a little bit about what your history was with music and kind of like how it shaped you, which is our goal. But I guess now that we're having you back, we wanted to kind of get a sense of what music is doing for you right now in your life, or like kind of how what role it's playing in your day to day these days. How would you characterize
Yeah.
that?
I'm still sort of dabbling on my own, like playing and not writing music really. So we still have like our music room in our house here, which is such a privilege to have. So I just played drums the other day. I think I've gone through periods of not playing as much, but we also got an electric piano last year. I know, Michael, you're a player. I don't remember, Tyler, if you are.
Not really. No,
But
Michael's
I
holding
took
it down
lessons.
for us.
Yeah. I took lessons as a kid. I'm not really a natural piano player, but it's nice to mess around. And my husband's a real capital M musician. My kids are both like incredibly gifted that they'll just sit down and, you know, Wayne, my 16-year-old will just be like, oh yeah, I've heard this composition from Zelda and I just like sat down and played it, so it's just that like trying to be in a house where music is accessible, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of playing. In terms of listening, um, I still listen to mostly 90s stuff. I don't know if I'm like proud or ashamed about that, but
Embrace it.
the
Embrace it.
Embrace it. Yeah, totally.
yeah,
There's no shame
the,
in it.
the occasional new band will like slip in. Like I have friends who are much better at discovering new music. I don't love Apple Music's algorithm. I don't love Spotify for different reasons.
Any
But
number, count them.
my brother, my brother works for Tidal, and I've
Really?
been, yeah. So I'm gonna actually. I think you can preserve your playlists and stuff by switching over to them. They pay artists a lot better, which is one of the
Yes.
reasons. And
Yeah.
like they have a really good sound quality.
I've
So
heard
I'm
that as
trying
well.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, trying to transition to Tidal, but whatever my kids are currently into is usually like I'm like, oh, there's some like pathway to new music, although they both also like old music.
Sure.
So
You
like
got
I
old
think
souls for kids.
totally. And social media, when they watch YouTube shorts or
Mm-hmm.
Instagram reels or something, they don't know where this clip of the song is from. They're like, wait, mom, you know Mazzy Star? Like, listen, I've been trying to get you into Mazzy Star for like a decade, but
You know
okay.
Pavement?
My God. Right? No, I'm the only member of my household that loves Pavement, sadly.
Really? I like
But
Pavement.
yeah, it's a whole thing with my husband, but it's
I think
fine.
the one that for me and Michael is that I like Moby, but you don't like Moby. Isn't that one difference that you and I have?
Yeah, he's fine. He just was used in so many commercials.
Yeah.
Like it became, and I don't know what. I mean, we don't need to go down that road right
Yeah, I mean,
now.
I don't. Feel neutral about Moby. However,
Mm-hmm.
watching Twin Peaks: The Return, and every episode generally ends with like a band performance, which is one of the reasons it's amazing. But yeah, Moby's just like playing backup in one of them, and I was like, oh, there's Moby. I hadn't even thought
No
about him,
big
and
deal.
so here we
Yeah.
are about Moby. But yeah, like Moira's, she's almost 14. Her favorite band, Michael, is Radiohead. I'm just so thrilled about that. Like she got
Mm.
Radiohead vinyl for Christmas. And we bought our first family record player. I've actually never owned my own record player. My family had one growing up in the 70s and 80s, but I've never really had my own, never really like learned that much about them. So I think like that's a big thing for me and like listening to music right now and just like kind of trying to be more analog in my life in general. It's like, disconnecting like the concept of my phone and all the baggage that goes along with that from the experience of listening to music, right? So like if I could be in my living room like with a book or with my cat and like listening to music without also scrolling or also, despairing about the state of the world, it's just a different experience. So I'm trying to get into the record life without becoming like an insufferable record person.
Possible. You can do it.
Yeah.
I feel like most of the people that I know are kind of like slowly transitioning into not insufferable record people. Because
Yeah.
I think it's a really, I mean, I gotta say, I don't want to speak for you, Michael, but I feel much the same way about that kind of relief that comes with being able to disconnect from this kind of media cycle that you find yourself in, disconnect from the like, it's so smooth, right? I'm reading this book called Super Bloom by Nicholas Carr. He wrote the Shallows. Michael, you and I both
read
that one.
Yeah,
and that came out a long time ago now. And he was talking about the internet in this way. He knew back when, let's just say that. But anyway, he's talking about how these technologies of connection actually tear us apart, and kind of gets into it on kind of like a neurological and also a physical level. And I think he's saying how all these tech bros, all the tech overlords, they want to reduce friction. And I'm sure you know that concept, right? Reduce the friction in the experience of using this technology. And it's actually the friction sometimes, the friction of having to put a record on the turntable and press on and lift the arm, or like press on and let the arm lift itself, like that. Even just those little steps, to me, they make they're fully embodied. They make it so much richer. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely agree. I know. I'm thinking about the concept of like, I'll still make mixes for people, like a playlist, and then I'll just text it to them. But like, there's such a difference between that and getting like the tape just right or the CD just right, and syncing everything and writing the liner notes. That was the experience of that was just as important as the music itself, I think. Even if you're inevitably going to get your heart broken as part of it.
Yeah.
And designing the artwork in Photoshop as opposed to like cutting and pasting things to create the like cover. It's not the same.
No,
no,
totally.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're now curious to know how specifically you came to discover this album. And also, I mean, while we're talking about it, whether or not you own this on vinyl would be something we might like to know.
No, I need to now that I'm actually buying records. No, I bought this on CD in the 90s. It's actually the only album of hers I ever own, which is weird because I listened to a lot of her albums on, streaming. But I guess to back up, like I first discovered Patti Smith in a funny way. Like it was probably mid 80s, kid in the middle of New Jersey watching SNL reruns with my family, and I saw Gilda Radner's like totally genius impression of Patti Smith. If you haven't seen it, it's amazing. I just loved Gilda in like anything that she was doing. So I thought anything that she was doing was cool. I didn't know whether like this impression or this person was different from like Rosanna Dana. It was just all like cool, funny lady doing cool stuff. But I remember being like, who is this? And my parents were like, oh, that's like Patti Smith. She's this punk rocker in New York, and like, I think they appreciated her music, but I don't think we had any of the albums in our house. But anyway, I was asking my parents about them because they're just a little, Patti Smith's just a little bit older than my parents. And so they were like, oh yeah, and she's from New Jersey. But hearing the word like punk or punk rock, I think by the mid 80s, the idea of punk was just kind of meaningless. It was almost more about like fashion.
Yeah.
Like my references of that in everything, like bright colors and like, I don't know if you guys watched Gem and the Holograms, but like that was my reference, was like the Misfits band and Gem and the Holograms. They were punk, and like this teenager at the mall with like spikes in their hair, that's punk. But it wasn't really about what that really meant for music, for ethos, for a movement, and this depiction that Gilda, like, just like a tank top and like no makeup and wild eyes, like that was totally different than the idea of somebody with a pink mohawk, So yeah, but I kind of just put that on the mental shelf and was just like, oh, that's cool. But I don't think I really actively listened to her music until high school. I guess I'll talk about how it's connected to me and Michael.
Do it.
So really ramped up, like doing a deep dive into Patti Smith and this album in college. So my senior year of college, 2001. Was it fall or spring, Michael?
It was spring because it was our final semester on campus. Yes.
What I thought. So, Michael and I were theater majors together, and yeah, I was really lucky to be cast in the show Stupid Kids by John C. Russell. And, one of his only produced plays, I think.
I think maybe only, because I think it might have been produced posthumously.
Posthumously, right? Yeah.
As well.
I think he died of AIDS in his 30s. Yeah, really genius play. I'm whatever, I guess 21, 22, playing a high schooler who was called Jane, but she sort of renamed herself Kimberly as a reference to the Patti Smith song, also on Horses. And just like a queer, rebellious high school kid in the 90s. And so to prepare for this role, just, ramped up listening to Patti Smith, listening to Horses. I bought kind of a bad unauthorized biography, but tried to learn, like it wasn't as easy to just Google stuff at that point. Early days of Google. Yeah, I really, we'll talk about the song later, but I listened to the song that I chose for this on repeat to like prepare before the show. I just kind of meditated and just like listened to the song on repeat before I went on stage.
Yeah.
And then I went to see her live finally about 5 years ago
Nice.
at like a mid-sized venue in Boston, and she was amazing. Amazing. Like,
how could she not be? Yeah.
Played for hours. Actually, like, we moved 2 hours away from Boston, so I actually like left before the show was over because I was like, oh, we have a 2-hour drive. But she played all the songs that I wanted to hear, and in her 70s.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it was really incredible. I'm glad I got that opportunity.
So, Michael, did you direct the show or were you in the show?
No, I directed. I was only in like 1 or 2 shows in college. I focused primarily on directing. It was, and the play is...
Was it special? Does it hold a special place in your heart too?
Yeah, it was sort of a queer riff on Rebel Without a Cause, which in itself already has a lot of queer overtones in it. But except, some changes, because Kristen's character technically is not riffing on anything from the film, but there was the character who calls himself Plato in Rebel Without a Cause calls himself Nietzsche. in Stupid Kids. And it's meant to be kind of campy, but it's also like, towards the end, the main character whips out a gun when he can't figure out how he's going to exist within the world. Which, thinking back, Kristen, we did not handle that moment well. But
that's interesting.
Our frontal lobes were still developing.
It's true. It's true. But it was also I
don't even know what you mean by that. But I'm fascinated by that. We can take that off pod if you want. We can put that on the theater pod. But but the show also called for these live action music videos, which enabled me to sort of start really, being really aggressive with sound design to tell the story.
Sound design ever, though.
And it ran the gamut, 'cause it was everything from Pixies to Basement Jacks to that song by the Dandy Warhols that I can't remember what it's called, to I think Kids in America from the Clueless soundtrack. God
damn.
And
one of my favorite bands.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And Patti Smith is within it as well because of that specific song. But yeah, that's honestly how I got to know her. And it's weird to look back on that show and now with the knowledge I have about music too. Just we've actually been talking about punk quite a bit this season.
We have,
unexpectedly. And I will say that if we're talking about punk as an aesthetic, this does not feel even as a musical genre, listening to Horses, it doesn't sound like a punk album to me if you're holding it up against the Ramones or the Sex Pistols. But sure. I feel
it predated both of those and influenced them.
Exactly. I think that there's
whether those dudes would admit it or not.
Yeah. Oh, good point. Yeah. But punk has become such a hot topic-ified thing that it feels in some ways maybe she's the authentic punk. If we're going to place the origins of it, it's neither the Sex Pistols nor the Ramones. It's
Sonic Youth, it's Riot Grrrl, it's people making something out of nothing, people rejecting the idea that you have to go to music school or you have to go to, you have to have all this formal training and this or that. No, you can pick up an instrument and just do it. And that is so ballsy and so antithetical to a lot of, what was going on in music at the time and why so many of her influences were poets and not musicians, or they were musicians like Dylan or, Jim Morrison, who I'm not a huge fan of, but I totally get what she took from him and made her own, and so like, yeah, less about, because I just find that it's the same in movies. I feel like people get really weird, dudes especially, no offense, about genres, and you're not those dudes. And, their kind of brains break when something is multiple genres and they can't defend it as like one king genre, and that's what I love. Like, it's just, you're like, yeah, like punk is more of an ethos and more of a, like, when you watch her performances, whether, even if it is like a slower, more lyrical song, they are punk performances, because she's not thinking too hard, she's not posturing, she's just like letting the music move through her in a way that is almost, and I loved your summary, Tyler, because I feel like that, yeah, like she is primordial, and like that, and especially for a woman, and for like a sort of androgynous presenting woman in that time, to conduct herself like that is like the punkest thing I can think of,
Hell yeah. And it's really not cloying the way that she does it. Like I think what's hard is that you see somebody living, like an artist living a principled life in the public eye for so long, and kind of having the reach that she has, I think is something that is so easy to kind of bluster and try to imitate when you see from other artists in that space. But hers never feels like bluster to me for some reason. It feels very genuine. And I think that's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to be so self-possessed, to say like, I reject the very notion of your categorization. Like it's a very powerful thing that I feel like very few people get to embody.
Yes.
And so she's special. She's really special in that way. And I think if we're gonna judge punk by the definition of what I'll call the Teskey test, which is our friend Lindsay Teskey, a music writer and a person who loves punk, she kind of defined it as something that is fundamentally questioning the status quo in a way that risks something politically. There's some kind of political risk. You're putting yourself on the line to live a principled, like to make your art in a principled way that challenges oppressive forces, basically. And I think she fits. I think she passes the Teskey test, which is related to the Bechdel test, by the way. But it's different.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly right. And like, yeah, the Boston Raising Powerful Musicians organization that I've been involved with, that's how they talk about. They're just like, say fuck you to the status quo, and or when they do kids programming, they're like, say yuck to the status quo. But that's what it is. It's just like, stop telling me what I have to be or how I have to perform or present, and like, just like, all ideas are good ideas. You put them in a blender, and then they will eventually, congeal and become something. And just like kind of trusting that process. And she grew up poor too. I mean, that's part of what my standout track is about, right? But like, for somebody to move to New York when they're 20 years old and just be like, I am going to live a life of an artist, and just like knowing that since you were born, basically, I'm just so in awe of that.
Okay, we got miles left to go on this Patti Smith road, but in the interest of time, why don't you bring us back to the album itself? And you've mentioned it, you've teased it a few times, Kristen, but why don't you tell our listeners, what have you chosen as your standout track from Horses?
My standout track is Free Money.
All right, if you're on YouTube, you're about to see the video for Free Money, so watch it. It's gonna be great, and then come back to us and watch part two of our chat with Kristen. See you in a second.